I'll start off with a quote from President Obama. He says, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. We are the ones we've been waiting for, and we are the change that we seek. I think for a long time, we have put all of our hopes and dreams on someone else to be the change that we want to see. And that other person is the government, it's your institutions, it's your professors, maybe it's even your parents. But change seems to not be coming. So that's why we have this anti-racist hot dog launch today. It is born out of the passion that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. This all started really when one fateful Saturday night, I think it was the 17th of October, I didn't want to cook. I wanted to go and have a good dinner out by the beach. I'm not sure if you guys know about the new prominent extension. Yes, you know about the... Yeah. So we have a prominent extension which cost the municipality 400 million to build. So I saw this restaurant. It enjoys prime location. When you walk out, you walk right into... Sorry, can you hear me? You can't hear me? Okay. I'm gonna try a bit louder. Cool. So this really all started when one fateful Saturday night, I, like any other young man, didn't want to cook. So I decided to go grab a meal at the new prominent extension. This is a development that's cost the municipality 400 million rand. And it's stellar, it's exciting. This is the restaurant that enjoys the prime real estate. This is the only restaurant in Durban that I know of within the Golden Mile where when you walk out of the restaurant, you literally walk into the pristine sand of the Durban beach. So I wanted a taste of that. I was excited about the development that I'm seeing in my city. So I arrived, and as I was walking in, there was something a little odd, I must say. The population of the folks who were sitting outside having dinner didn't necessarily reflect the population of Durban as I know it. In other words, it was mostly Caucasian people. So I was like, I guess my people haven't figured out about this secret restaurant. I'm going to taste it out for them and call them over. So I enter the restaurant, and as soon as I take the first step in, a manager with a slightly lighter skin shouts out from beyond the counter and says, "You cannot eat here." So I was shocked. I was like, why can't I eat here? He said, "Are you a member?" I was like, "No, I'm not a member. I wasn't aware this is a club." He's like, "Yeah, this is the clubs only, and you cannot eat here." I was like, it's my fault. Can I have a day pass? Can I just come in for dinner? I'll pay for a day pass." And he said, no day passes. Oh, that's odd. I was like, okay. So I took, now I'm starting to visibly be frustrated. So I take out my wallet and I'm like, well, how do I join the club? Can I join the club right now? And he turns to me, he's like, well, to join the club, you need to email this person, who needs to email that person, and then a committee will sit down to decide whether or not you can make the cut to be part of the club. So I was like, man, this is crazy. So you can imagine I was frustrated, I was disappointed of something like this happening in 2021. So I bow my head and walk out. And I spent the next 2 days researching the club, reading every minute, looking at their board, which is all white. And as I'm going through the club, I find out that there's really two types of membership.
Keep going. He says keep going.
As they figured it out. As I research about the club, I quickly find out there's two main types of membership.
So there's the sports membership and then there's the social membership. The sports membership are for the amazing folks who go underwater, snorkeling and all sort of different things that I haven't had the privilege to experience. Partly because of my skin color and the history of this country and the beach. So I wasn't going to join that, but I wanted to be able to eat at the beachfront. So when I looked at the social membership, what was fascinating to me was realizing how it was structured. So it was structured in a way where you fill in a form with your details, like where you live, who you are, etc. And then you need to submit your photo. This is legit. I'm not making this up. This is the only requirement. You submit your photo, and then you need 2 members of the club who are in good and regular standing to co-sign for you in order for you to be part of this club. And then depending on the level of membership you're joining, you're either paying 3,500 or 2,500 or even 1,500 just to be a member of this club. So when you actually look at this, let's paint a scenario. Let's say one dealer from Guamashu wants to eat at the beach, and he has to go through this procedure just to be able to eat at that restaurant. I don't know 2 guys who snorkel or who scuba dive, right? There was no facilities for us to snorkel or scuba dive. For all I know, my parents couldn't even go to the beach. But in addition to that, in order for me to qualify, I need to send in my picture. Why is it that my picture is the only requirement? And then a committee sits down and decides based on that picture whether or not I'm worthy to be a part of this club. Now, I think there's clear elements of systemic racism. There's clear elements of how this is intentionally structured to bar a certain group of people from being able to enter these premises. I think the irony of it all is sort of the location of the beach, which used to be whites only. So this is just a modern version of that translation. But again, this all starts back from the 1930s Separations Act. But you know, I just want to be clear and say, to me, I am not upset at the club, but I am concerned by the fact that my taxpayer money is excluding me from eating in the building that I paid for. I am concerned that I am paying for my own exclusion. I'm paying for my own apartheid. That's our money that's built that place. And I am the one who's being systematically ousted from being able to eat in that place. Both in structure, in co-signing, in financing. So with all of this, I wrote a letter to the city, deputy city manager, and the deputy mayor. So, you know, there was a response, some level of apology, and they would look into it. So they did research on the matter, they talked to us, they spoke to them, they wrote a report, and then we never heard from them again. So we wrote an article on Eyewitness News talking about how public space and architecture is never neutral. It either heals or it hurts. And how in this country and around the world, frankly, it has systematically been used to disadvantage black and brown people. And how can we as young architects coming up today change and reclaim public space to be inclusive and to allow everyone to have an equitable access to that public space? But in the bigger South Africa, we obviously need equitable access to resources, equitable access to opportunities. We need to eradicate nepotism that exists within the private sector and even the public sector. So we wrote this article really digging deep into this, and it's ironic because when you look at the legislation of apartheid, it was largely formulated on research based on how the American South Jim Crow laws had been structured. Now the funny thing is, when those laws started being phased out during the 1960s, 70s, MLK days and Malcolm X days, they shifted to create these memberships only clubs as the next legal avenue to exclude black people from these places. So this is ironic because a lot of what apartheid was really borrowed from that, and we see that same legacy continue to happen. For example, the Masters, when you play golf, certain black golfers couldn't play in the South because they were not members of the club where the golf tournament was being played, regardless of how good they were. I like to think of myself as a good eater, and I think I could fare well with the guys who were eating at the Durban Undersea Club. But my skills were not considered and I was kicked out. So what do I do about it? So we wrote this article and we got some backlash, particularly from the white community. One lady commented and said, let's call her Karen.
Yes.
She commented, so Karen writes to me and she says, if you don't feel welcome in our restaurant, why don't you go start your own? So I was like, that's actually a really good idea. And that's how the anti-racist hot dog was born. Thank you. It was born as a physical symbol of equity, as a protest to inequality, but also as an opportunity for people who can't eat at the Durban Undersea Club or the Durban Waterfront Club to be able to have a place to eat. So this stand, as you see, it's this pop-up restaurant stand, will be located right on top of the Durban Undersea Club at the promenade. We're just waiting for the permits from the municipality. So if anyone is here from the municipality, we're waiting. I think the last point I want to make before I bring up my friend, who also just so happens to be one deal, and we'll have a quick discussion with all of y'all, is that I'm disappointed in the folks that we vote into public office. Those folks are out there they're supposed to protect us, but clearly we're not important enough of an interest for them. After countless emails, after writing an article, and after creating this whole thing, they still aren't responding. So, as a closing statement to the intro of why this started and why this is here, I just want to be clear that I think particularly within the white community, there's a lot of talk about how we are blaming everything on apartheid. Let's talk about that. We're blaming everything on apartheid. Why can't you just move forward? Like, why can't you just move on? Why are you living in the past? So look, I'll agree with you that apartheid as a legislation, a lot of it has been phased out. So I can say apartheid is over. But you know what predates apartheid? White supremacy. That never ended. And that's what we need to change. But the funny thing about white supremacy, even though it's really about power, generational wealth, it's systemic, it's deep. You can't think you're not racist, but whilst contributing towards it. The funny thing is, like, even though it's based on power, wealth, generational wealth, and whiteness, the agents and the gatekeepers of white supremacy are very diverse. It's not white people who aren't responding to my emails at the municipality. It's people that look like me. You know? You see it in corruption. And then there's this also notion that, like, oh, black politicians are corrupt. But let's talk about that. We had this whole notion, and then Agrizi comes out and is like, hey, I'm the one who was being corrupt with them. They're being corrupt with white monopoly capital. They're not being corrupt with Wandile because Wandile doesn't have the generational wealth to be corrupt with them. Right? So these things are systemic. These things predate us. We can either stay on the sidelines and let the world be as is, or we can fight for the world as it ought to be. So this is my very little step towards starting that fight for a world as it ought to be. You all come from different backgrounds, different jobs, different families, and different opportunities. And you all have a role and responsibility to fight for equity. I think it's time we stop waiting for the government. I think it's time we become the change that we want to see. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone coming here. How are you guys doing? Are you having a good time? Yeah. Cool. Who got the privileged dog? Proud of you. Anti-racist dog. Respect. And then we have the Black Friends dog. You definitely have to get that. But yeah, as we move on to sort of the closing segment of this conversation and what this really is all about, I'm going to bring up my brother, Wandile, to come up, and then we'll have a conversation with all of y'all, and he has a couple of questions that he has for me. And how can we really be the change? Because look, I think a lot of talks have been given, a lot of songs have been sang, but we really need to bring about the real change now. So Wandile will help us have that discussion. I'd also like to apologize for the long line. This is the first time we operate, so we're trying to figure out a lot of things. So I apologize for that, and I hope you had a great experience and you had great hot dogs. Can we have a second mic, please? If it works.
Hello everybody, my name is Wandile Mso. So I'm basically here to help out with the conversation, ask a few questions. I think it's, some can't hear me, I think it's the mic. But just 2 minutes too. I'm sure they're gonna try and work on that.
As they work.
Okay, so I'm going to try and just help out with the conversation, get the conversation going, ask some questions. So, Wandile, I think your experience is so widespread. I've experienced racism countless times. I stopped paying attention to it, although I should, but it's just, I think when we experience it, the reaction is like, well, it's South Africa. In South Africa, these things happen. But I think, and we've had a lot of these conversations with my friends from all races, and whenever we have these debates and discussions, I find that we don't know what racism is. We all have different definitions of what racism is, and I come from the school of thought that discrimination itself does not equate to racism. It's discrimination. Stereotype does not equate to racism. So now we're going to debunk the whole, well, I have a black friend, I'm not racist. You can have a black friend and be racist. This is why. Racism is not about hating the next person because of the color of the skin. It's about thinking you're better than the next person because of the color of your skin. And you can have a friend that you think you're better than. You can have a girlfriend, a boyfriend that you really, really, truly do believe that you're better than them, right? Because of the color of your skin. And I want Wandile just to add on that, on like maybe the power element of it, what constitutes this very broad word, which is racism.
Yeah, I think. Testing 1, 2. Hello. I think you've put it really well. I'll take it back to this scenario. So here's what happened, right? So I post this article out on social media. All my black friends are like, hey man, this happened to me yesterday, it happened to me last week, it happened to me the other week. All my architecture students that I've lectured at DUT or UKZN who are white are saying, I go there all the time, I don't have a membership, but no one has ever talked to me or even asked me a question. Right, so when I was doing that sign, the anti-racist sign, I hired a graphic designer that I was referred to, and then later on I found out she's a white South African who lives in England, and I was like, I don't know, like, hey, just so you know, this is like a protest. I don't know which side you fall on, but hey, can you design this for me? So she gets back to me and is like, hey, I'm all for the revolution. I just want to say, I was at that restaurant 2 months ago, I got a burger and a beer, and no one talked to me, and no one had any issues with that, right? So clearly, there's a difference in treatment depending on that color of your skin, right? But it goes deeper when you actually look at it in the context of how systemic and historic this has been, both from an architectural perspective, where space such as the Durban Island Sea Club and the Point waterfront area, were whites only, right? And how people are going at lengths to carry that legacy on in innovative, legal ways today. And I think we need to understand sort of how this all adds up and leads up to sort of the condition that we have now.
I hope this works now. I don't think it does. Okay, I think that's very interesting. With systemic racism, so let's define what systemic racism is. And I want you to get deep into systemic racism. So my basic understanding was this. Okay, we have apartheid. Black people, you can't work here, right? You can't even apply to work here, right? We don't want any black people here. Then 94, Mandela out, reconciliation and everything, right? Rainbow Nation, and the Springboks win the World Cup. And then they change the rules now, right? They'll say, okay, no, everyone can work here. You just need to live in Sandton. I don't know a lot of black people who live in Sandton, who are out looking for a job. Okay, you have to live in Sandton. Well, you know you're gonna work long hours, so you'll need a car. Oh, now a black person with a car who lives in Sandton looking for a job, you don't get a lot of that. So that is systemic, and it's rules that are there that are designed, specially designed to exclude a certain group of people, right? And with that club that you were saying, you have to send your picture, right? What are they going to do with the picture? It's to check your race, right? Are you one of us? So I want you to just get into systemic racism and your understanding. And outside of, I know you've experienced it before, you've been around. What are kind of your personal experience, other personal experiences with that systematic racism?
Well, thank you very much. And I think systemic racism it's very interesting because it's the next level, right? It's the PhD of racism. South Africans, we always talk about how we're a rainbow nation, but in reality we're a grayscale, with the darkest colors on one end and then the lightest colors on the other end. And you know how you know that? Like when we drive off to our communities, those are going to KwaMashu, those are going to Durban North and Nhlanga, those are going to Phoenix. We go back to our homogeneous groups. We inherited that, right? We didn't build it, but we inherited it, and it's systemic. And based on the place you live in, that's the opportunity. Your zip code or your area code defines what opportunities that you will have. So no one blatantly says, hey, you know, you can't go to this school, but you know, you have to take 2 taxis to go to a school in Phoenix that's slightly better than the one in KwaMashu, right? And then why is it that the school in KwaMashu is still worse than the one in Phoenix or the one in Durban North 27 years post-apartheid? Why are kids still sharing textbooks, right? Why is it that I grew up post-apartheid, but all I saw were Shibin signs, and my friends who grew up here, all they saw was tennis training, right? You know, yoga sessions, how to prepare for university examination tests. I never had that. But when I get to UKZN, when I get to DUT, I'm expected to perform at the same level, right? And then there's this notion like, oh, black people aren't smart enough, right? But the ground isn't equal. How do we then really stabilize that foundation and create equitable experience? And it's interesting because I saw it in America, where you have, and a very diverse student group, but then all the professors are white. And then they're like, oh, we love diversity, you're good here. I was like, well, how would I want to be a professor if I can't see myself in a professor? I have no black role models. So when we bring that up, they're like, no, diversity is about the diversity of thought. Right? Diversity of thought. Yeah, diversity of thought is shaped by the experiences in the communities you grew up in. You can't have a diversity of thought of a guy from Gomashu when you grew up in Michigan. I want to understand how the guy from Gomashu views this architecture. Right? You have Amafa protecting all these historic colonial buildings, and yet every day Amakukwana, the traditional Zulu architecture, is being destroyed to build buildings like this, and no one is protecting them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's embedded, but the thing, as I said, it's like the government isn't white, right? Racism and systemic racism may be based out of power and whiteness, but the gatekeepers of it, the agents of it, are very diverse. They look like me and you.
I think, well, this is just to say something that was said by an individual that a lot of people may view as very controversial, but you have to listen to him. His name is Louis Farrakhan. So it's either you like him or you hate him very much. And he said, well, when we, in the 60s in America, here will be before 94, we knew who the enemy was. We knew the enemy, right? Our parents knew the enemy. Now we don't know who the enemy is, because the enemy looks like you, right? And the gatekeepers of white supremacy look like you and I, right? And I guess the question is, maybe this is a difficult one, but why is that? Why is that? Why are people who are ready to die for people who look like us are now oppressing us, right? And I don't know. I'm thinking we should go to the audience. So anyone who has a comment? Okay, we have one there. So we have a comment or question.
Sanbonani, it's not a question, right? Like, beautiful conversation, beautiful concept. But at some point, we all need to understand that time flows. So the problem, I was raised by my grandmother. I'm an 80s baby, right? So being an 80s baby, the values that I was raised on are from the perspective of women who've been oppressed. And oppression has many faces. Now, I'm in the 2021, when I was growing up, 2021, Jesus Christ is supposed to be back. I should be in heaven right now enrolling in with John and whoever else is up there, right? So, topics like this require something that has more depth than how you look like. We're in the era of choice. If you grew up in a house where your parents are batagat, or witches of bad medicine, the time that we are in is requiring you to make a choice. White children who are product of parents who are racist, it's not about them having a conversation with me as a black child who is a consequence of racism to talk about how I feel about black men being in jail or black children living in the township. But it's more of a conversation of the white body to say, how do I actually feel about black men being murdered? How do I feel about that every black man who walks the street is a suspect? It's not conversations that need all of us to engage because our realities are not the same. If you are privileged, acknowledge your privilege, and then you make a personal choice that moving forward, I am not going to do the same thing as my grandfather. And if me, as a black child, my father was in exile for many years. My grandfather was in exile for many years. So I ain't got no time to talk about my grandfather's experience in exile. But I have all the time and opportunity to check my privilege as a black child. Very academic white women who know. It's about, okay, here's a good example. When a white person, I'm talking to my black brothers and sisters here. When a white person tells you in your face, yes, I am racist, What's your next? You don't know what to say because in your mind you automatically assume that white people are racist. So when one is honest with you and says they are racist, then what? It means I need to change my trajectory about racism because this person is acknowledging the fact that they are racist. Me as a black girl, I won't lie to you. There's no such thing as a black racist person because the system we're living under is under a white man privilege. So there's no way I'm gonna be racist. But there's every way that I'm gonna admit that I defend myself as a black body in a white space. We took a walk at the beach today. There were only white surfers from the ages of 7 to 56 or even 70. There were no black bodies there. You know why? Because the 70-year-old man who's black is actually the security guard in the company. When this white man finishes surfing, he's going to ask him to open the gate. So we cannot compare privilege, guys, but acknowledge your privilege. Actually, I'm going to talk forever, and if you want me to lay hands on you, I'm available.
Thank you very much. Is there any other person who wants to add? Did you see some? Is there anyone who wants to add to the conversation, ask a question? Okay.
As we're wrapping up the conversation, I just want to explain why the protest became a venture, a hot dog, or an anti-racist hot dog. I think it is important for us to understand that whenever we protest, it takes away from the victim, right? So if I'm going to protest, I'm losing a day out of work, so I'm losing that pay. If I'm going to protest, I may lose my job because my boss doesn't feel the same and majority of our bosses are still white. If I'm going to protest, I may risk being killed by a police, as we saw in Johannesburg in the student protests that are currently happening. We saw that in Black Lives Matter, right? You may actually lose your life. So I wanted to flip the model. I was like, man, if protest takes away from us, how can we reframe protest to something that actually gives to us? And that's why we created the anti-racist hot dog as a business venture so that people could buy and it gives back to the community rather than take away from us whilst we continue to make that statement that this needs to change. So that's really why this ended up becoming a business venture as you see it today. But now as we close up, I'll just give one delay and then we'll have some performances that have been waiting. But again, I just want to say, really appreciate everyone coming here. I think we need more conversations like this, but more than that, we need to be the change that we want to see in our communities, in our spaces. We can talk all day. Racism is the only disease that affects the person who's not sick more than the person who's sick. And we need to change that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to us. I know this is a very difficult conversation for a lot of people. It's emotionally charging. So thank you very much, everybody. And just one more thing: it's not enough for you not to be racist. You have to be anti-racist. That's very important. Ask yourself, what have I done today to contribute to reversing what is happening right now? With white supremacy, with racism and everything. So thank you very much, everybody, for engaging in this conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'll give it back to DJ Funky.